I still remember the exact second my phone rang that evening. It was almost midnight and my apartment was quiet, too quiet for a newly married man. My wife Emily had gone to spend the night at her parents' house, or at least that's what she told me. I didn't question it at the time. Why would I? We had been married for only 3 weeks. I was still floating in that soft, glowing bubble newlyweds talk about. But that night the bubble finally burst. When the phone rang, I wasn't expecting anything unusual. I thought it was one of my coworkers calling about the software rollout scheduled for Monday. But when I saw the caller ID, my breath caught in my throat. It was Ray Larson, our wedding photographer. Ray wasn't supposed to call me. He was supposed to email the final edited album next week. A call, especially at that hour, meant something else, something unexpected, something unsettling. I hesitated before answering, like some part of me already knew that whatever came next would change my life forever. "Hey Michael, are you awake?" Ray's voice came through the phone, low and strangely shaky. "Yeah," I said. "Is everything all right?" There was a pause, a long one, too long I could almost hear him swallow. "Listen," he said cautiously. "I was editing your wedding photos tonight and I noticed something very disturbing. Something I think you need to see as soon as possible." My stomach tightened, the room felt colder suddenly. "What do you mean by disturbing?" I asked. He exhaled slowly, almost like he was afraid to say it. "I can't really explain it over the phone. You need to come here now." That word echoed in my mind. My heart started beating faster. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Part of me wanted to believe maybe he saw a shadow or a mistake in the exposure, or maybe some creepy face from a guest photobombing behind us. Something small, something stupid. But the tone in his voice, I had never heard a grown man sound like that. "All right," I said quietly. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. As I grabbed my keys, a strange heaviness settled over me, a warning maybe, or a whisper from fate telling me that the life I thought I had was not the life I actually lived. I drove through the empty streets, the stoplights blinking yellow in the quiet night, and the whole time my mind raced. What could possibly be so disturbing in a wedding photo? When I got to Ray's small studio on Maple Street, he was standing outside waiting for me. His face was pale, too pale. He greeted me with a nod, no smile, no normal friendliness. He looked like someone who was about to hand me bad news. Inside the studio, he locked the door and pulled the blinds down. That detail didn't escape me. "You don't close your blinds at midnight unless you don't want someone to see what's happening inside." "Ray," I said softly, "you're freaking me out. Just tell me what this is about." He motioned me toward his computer. "Sit." The screen was already open to a grid of photos from the wedding day. Photos full of smiles, flowers, friends, and moments that were supposed to be nothing but joyful. But Ray clicked on one image in particular, one taken during the reception while Emily and I were dancing under fairy lights. At first glance, it looked perfect. She was in my arms, her smile was bright, and everything looked like a scene from a dream. But then Ray said, "Look closer behind you." And that's when I saw it. Standing behind us near one of the tables was a man, a tall man dressed in a dark suit, face tilted slightly down, hands in his pockets. He wasn't smiling, he wasn't talking. He wasn't even moving, just staring straight at Emily, unblinking, unmoving, staring in a way no stranger should stare at a bride. I leaned closer. "Who is that? I don't recognize him." Ray didn't answer. He clicked to the next photo, one taken from another angle, maybe a second later. The same man, same stiff posture, same unbroken stare, unnaturally still like a statue trapped in the wrong moment. Then Ray clicked another photo, same man, same stare, but this time Emily wasn't looking at me. She wasn't smiling, her eyes were over my shoulder, looking at him, not like she was noticing a stranger, no, like she knew him, like she recognized him. A small chill ran down my spine. "Ray," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "what exactly am I looking at?" He swallowed again. "There's more, look at this." He opened a series of shots taken during the cake cutting. Emily holding the knife, smiling, but in the background, through the reflections of the venue's glass windows, I saw something that made my skin prickle. The man in the suit was outside now, still staring, still unmoving, like he was watching us through the glass, like he didn't belong to the wedding but to her. My heartbeat quickened. Do you know who he is?" I asked. Ray shook his head. "I ran facial recognition through my software. It didn't match any registered guests. I compared it with your guest list, your family list, her family list. Nothing. I even checked the venue's entrance footage. He never walked in." My breath caught. "What do you mean he never walked in?" "I mean," he said slowly, "there is no footage of him entering the building. None. He just appears in the middle of the reception like he materialized out of nowhere." A cold wave washed over me. "What are you saying?" I whispered. "I'm saying something is very, very wrong," he said. "And I think Emily knows who he is." I froze. That sentence felt like a knife sliding between my ribs. "What makes you say that?" I forced out. He opened one last photo. It was taken near the end of the night when Emily stepped outside to take a call. I had assumed it was a normal moment, a bride taking a breath of fresh air, nothing strange there. But in this photo, Emily wasn't alone. She was standing with the same man. Facing him, talking to him, her expression wasn't fear. It was the expression of someone explaining something to someone who had power over her. The man's posture was rigid, as if he was angrily trying to control the conversation. My chest tightened. "I didn't see this," I whispered. I didn't know she stepped outside with someone." Ray nodded slowly. "I thought I was going crazy until I zoomed in." He zoomed further, and now for the first time I saw the man's face clearly: sharp jaw, cold eyes, expression hollow, emotionless, chilling. A face I had never seen before, a face that looked like it belonged in a crime documentary, not a wedding. But what hit me hardest was what Ray showed next. "Look," he said, pointing at Emily's hand. I leaned closer. Emily was holding something small. A folded piece of paper. She was handing it to the man. My mouth went dry. What is she giving him?" Ray hesitated. I adjusted the exposure and found something else. He zoomed in again. My heart stopped. The paper was not blank. There were words on it, 5 words, words that burned into my brain like fire. "He can't ever find out." My chest collapsed inward. "He can't ever find out." My mind spun, my hands trembled, the room felt like it was spinning around me. "Ray," I whispered. "Are you sure this isn't edited or fake? Or—" "I swear on my life, Michael," he said firmly. "These are untouched. This is real." I felt something inside me break, something deep, something fundamental. I sat back in the chair, breath shaking. "What does this mean?" I asked quietly. Ray looked at me with eyes full of sympathy and fear. "I don't know, but it's not nothing, and I think that man isn't done with you." My heart hammered against my ribs. "Why would you say that?" Ray reached for a sealed envelope on his desk. My name was written on it. "This came to my mailbox earlier today," he said. "No return address, no message, just this." My fingers shook as I opened the envelope. Inside was a single printed photo. A photo taken last night, a photo of me standing inside my apartment through my living room window. The photo was taken from outside, from the darkness. My blood ran cold. "Ray, who took this?" He leaned back, voice barely audible. "I think the man in your wedding photos has been watching you since the night of your wedding. And I think whatever secret Emily is hiding, he's the one she's hiding it from you for." My world tilted. My marriage, my wife, my future, all built on something broken. Something hidden, something dangerous. "Michael," Ray whispered, "this is bigger than infidelity. This is something else, something darker, and I think this man is coming back." I looked at the wedding photo, the man's eyes burning through both of us like a shadow that didn't belong. And I knew in that moment my life was about to fall apart, but I had no idea just how deep the betrayal went, or how far I would go to uncover the truth. I drove home from Ray's studio that night with my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. The streets were empty, but my mind was. Every corner of it was filled with the face of that stranger from the wedding photos and the 5 words on that folded piece of paper. "He can't ever find out." I kept replaying it over and over. Emily's expression, the way she stood with him outside the venue. The way she handed him that note like she owed him something, like she was scared of what would happen if I discovered the truth. But Emily wasn't the kind of person who kept dark secrets. At least not the Emily I thought I knew. She was soft-spoken, gentle, kind. The kind of woman who wrote love letters in her journal and left sticky notes on my coffee mug every morning. Or maybe those were just things she did because she wanted me to believe a certain version of her. The version she wanted me to marry. Maybe the real Emily was someone else entirely. By the time I reached my apartment, the sky was turning a shade of midnight blue that almost felt too heavy, like it was pressing down on me. I stood outside my building for a full minute before going in, scanning the dark street, checking the shadows, wondering if the man from the photos was watching me again. I couldn't shake that feeling, that prickling at the back of my neck, the subtle awareness of being observed. I didn't want to admit it, but deep down I already felt less like a husband and more like a target. Inside my apartment, everything looked normal, too normal. The couch where Emily and I watched movies together, the kitchen counter where she made pancakes on Saturdays. The hallway lined with our honeymoon pictures. It all felt staged now, like a museum exhibit. Like someone had taken my life and polished it to look perfect even though nothing about it actually was. I sat on the edge of the bed and opened my phone. Emily hadn't texted. She hadn't called, and for the first time since we got married, silence from her felt suspicious. I stared at her contact picture for a long moment before hitting call. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Then her voice answered, soft but slightly breathless, as if she had just rushed into a quiet room. "Hey babe, are you okay? It's late." Her calm tone felt wrong, or maybe everything just felt wrong now because I wasn't sure what was real anymore. "I'm fine," I said. "I just wanted to hear your voice." A soft laugh escaped her. "Well, here I am. Where are you right now?" I asked. "At my parents' place," she answered. "I told you earlier, Mom hasn't been feeling well." The lie slid so smoothly off her tongue that if I hadn't seen the photos, if I hadn't seen the man, maybe I would have believed her. Maybe I wouldn't have questioned anything. But now her words tasted like poison. "How's your mom?" I asked quietly. She hesitated. Just for a fraction of a second, but I caught it. She's okay, she said. Resting now, I'll probably stay the night. I swallowed. Emily, did anything weird happen at the wedding? Anything you forgot to tell me? The silence that followed was different. It wasn't surprise. It wasn't confusion, it was fear. Why would you ask me that? She whispered. I hesitated, choosing my words carefully. The photographer called. He said there were some unusual things in the pictures. Another pause, longer this time. What kind of things? She asked. A man, I said finally. A man who kept appearing behind us, staring at you. Do you know who he is? She breathed out slowly, shakily, not a normal breath, the kind someone takes when they're caught off guard or caught lying. No, she said faintly. I don't know who you're talking about. But she did, I could hear it in her voice. There was something there, a crack in her calm. Emily, I said softly, is there something you're not telling me? Her response came faster this time, too fast. Michael, listen, I'm tired. It's been a long day. Can we talk tomorrow? And before I could speak again, she hung up. I stared at the phone in my hand, disbelief heating my chest. My wife, my brand new wife, just shut down the first real conversation we needed to have. And it didn't feel like exhaustion, it felt like avoidance. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that man's face staring through the wedding venue's glass. I saw Emily talking to him in the darkness. I saw the note in her hand. He can't ever find out what? That question pulsed in my head like a heartbeat. Around 4 a.m., I finally got up and poured myself a glass of water. The apartment was silent, but the silence had a weight to it now. Every shadow seemed deeper. Every creak in the floor made my skin tight. I couldn't stop thinking about that envelope from Ray's mailbox, the photo of me inside my apartment taken through my window. Someone had been watching me, studying me, knowing exactly where I was, what I was doing, how vulnerable I was. That kind of attention didn't come from a stranger, it came from someone with a reason. By sunrise, I knew one thing for certain: I needed answers. And I wasn't going to get them by sitting in my apartment, waiting for Emily to decide when she felt comfortable telling me the truth. So I drove to her parents' house. Her parents lived in a quiet neighborhood, the kind where everyone leaves their porch lights on all night and waves at the mailman. But when I arrived, something felt off. Their house was dark. No lights, no movement, no cars in the driveway. I knocked on the front door. No answer. I rang the bell, nothing. Then I called Emily again. Her phone rang inside the house, loud enough for me to hear it muffled through the walls, but she didn't pick up. My pulse began to race. Something wasn't right. Something was wrong enough that I almost stepped back and wondered if I was about to walk into something I wasn't ready to face. I knocked again, louder this time. Emily, it's me. Open the door. Silence. I walked around the side of the house and peered through the kitchen window. No one. I tried the back door, locked. I knocked again, still nothing. For a moment, panic crawled up my throat, hot and sharp. Had something happened to her? Had the man from the photos come here? Had he? Then I stopped. Something caught my eye on the ground near the side gate, a set of footprints, fresh, not covered by morning dew yet. Two sets actually, one smaller, probably Emily's, the other much larger, larger than mine. They led from the back door to the gate and then out toward the woods behind the neighborhood. My heart pounded. Emily wasn't alone. She had left the house with someone, at night, without her phone. A sick feeling settled in my gut. I wanted to follow those footprints, but something told me I shouldn't do it alone. So instead, I took pictures and drove straight to the only other person who knew even a piece of what was happening. Ray. He answered the door looking exhausted, like he'd been awake all night too. When he saw me, he didn't even ask questions. He just stepped aside and let me in. She's gone, I said, my voice cracking despite my effort to hold it together. Gone, he repeated. Gone where? I don't know, I said, running a hand through my hair. I went to her parents' house. It was empty. Her phone was there, ringing inside, but she was, and there were footprints, two sets leading into the woods. Ray rubbed his jaw, thinking, Michael, maybe she isn't missing, maybe she left willingly. That thought hit like a punch to the chest. Why would she leave with him? Why would she hide that from me? He hesitated. Maybe she's trying to protect you. I laughed bitterly. Protect me by lying to me, by disappearing in the middle of the night. By meeting some man who's been stalking our wedding. Ray didn't respond. I paced the room. I felt like I was losing grip on everything, my marriage, my safety, my sanity. I need to find out who he is, I said. I need his name. Ray nodded slowly. There's one more thing I didn't show you last night. What? I asked sharply. He walked to a drawer and pulled out a USB drive. This was in the same envelope as the photo, he explained. I didn't open it because I wanted you to see the picture first, and honestly, I was scared of what might be on it. He plugged the USB into his computer. A single video file appeared on the screen, no label, no timestamp, just a blank name, 1 MP4. Ray clicked it. The video opened with shaky footage, like someone was holding a phone from afar. It was dark, windy, hard to see, but slowly something came into focus. A house, Emily's parents' house. The camera zoomed in on the back door. A faint light flickered inside. Then the door opened, and Emily stepped out, still in her clothes from the wedding reception in the photos Ray had shown me, hair slightly windblown, looking around nervously. Then the man appeared behind her. He placed his hand on her back, gently, too gently, and Emily didn't pull away. She walked with him into the darkness. willingly, and just before they disappeared into the trees, Emily turned her head slightly just enough for the camera to catch a glimpse of her expression. It wasn't fear, it wasn't confusion, it was regret, deep, heavy regret. As if she wished she could change something she had done to me but knew it was already too late. The video ended. I sank into the nearest chair, my breath shattered. I felt like the world was spinning away from me, like nothing belonged to me anymore. "Michael," Ray said softly, "we need to find her." But before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A new text message, no name, unknown number, one sentence. "Stop looking for her, Michael, or you'll find the truth she's been hiding." My blood froze, whoever that man was. He wasn't just part of Emily's past, he was part of her present, and now he was warning me. And the worst part was I wasn't sure if he was threatening me or protecting me. The moment I read that message, every nerve in my body tightened. I stared at the screen, rereading the words, hoping they'd somehow change or make more sense. "Stop looking for her, Michael, or you'll find the truth she's been hiding." I didn't know what scared me more, the threat behind the warning or the idea that the truth might actually destroy me. Ray leaned over my shoulder, eyes widening. "Michael, that's him, it has to be." My pulse hammered in my ears. "He has my number. He knows where I live, he knows what I'm doing. And he's trying to push you away from something," Ray said quietly. "Something big." I locked my phone and stood up, pacing across the room. My thoughts were crashing into each other. Emily, the stranger, the photos, the video. The footprints, and now this message. She wasn't being pulled away, she wasn't kidnapped, she left with him, willingly, and that burned more than anything else. "Ray," I said, voice trembling, "why didn't she tell me? Why didn't she ever mention a man like that? Someone who clearly means something to her." Ray hesitated. "Maybe it's not about you, maybe it's something from her past." Past. The word echoed inside me like a dull bell. In the 2 years we'd been together, Emily never talked much about her past relationships. She would always brush over the subject, say things like, "It was complicated," or "I don't want to think about those days anymore." I never pushed, I thought she was just private, sensitive, maybe she'd had her heart broken badly before, but now. Now I wondered if she wasn't running from a broken heart, but from something much darker. I sank into the couch and buried my face in my hands. "This doesn't make sense, none of this makes any damn sense." Ray stayed quiet for a moment, then said, "It will make sense once we find out who he is." I looked up slowly. "And how do we do that?" Ray took a deep breath. "You're not going to like this, but there's one place we haven't checked." "Where?" I asked. "Emily's things," he answered. "Her old belongings, her boxes, anything she left behind at your place." My chest tightened. "You think she kept something? If she has a past with this man, and it looks like she does, there has to be a clue somewhere. Something she didn't throw away." I didn't want to dig through my wife's private things, it felt like crossing a line. But then again, she'd already crossed every line a person could cross, lying, disappearing, meeting a stranger in the dark, exchanging notes that said I couldn't ever find out. If she didn't trust me with her truth, she couldn't expect me to respect her secrets. "We'll go now," I said firmly. Ray grabbed his jacket. "Then let's go." As we drove to my apartment, I kept checking the mirrors. Every car behind me felt suspicious. Every shadow looked like it was stretching toward me. I was losing grip on reality, and fear was starting to replace logic. When we reached my building, Ray followed me upstairs. My apartment felt colder than before, like the air itself knew something was wrong. We went to the closet in the hall where Emily kept the boxes she hadn't unpacked after the wedding. 3 boxes, neatly stacked, labeled in her handwriting. Old letters, personal notebooks. Ray looked at me. "Which one first?" I swallowed hard. "Old letters." Ray lifted the lid. Inside were envelopes tied with ribbon, movie ticket stubs, postcards, small notes. She had kept everything from the past except anything that looked dangerous, or maybe she hid those separately. We searched through every envelope, every letter. Most were harmless, old birthday cards, letters from her grandmother, notes from college friends. Nothing unusual. "Next box," Ray said softly. We opened personal. Inside were photos, dozens of them. Emily from high school, from college, at beaches with friends. She looked happy, young, unbroken. But as I flipped through the photos, something caught my eye. A folded picture tucked in the back. Ray noticed my hesitation. "What is it?" I slowly unfolded it. It was a picture of Emily, younger, maybe 18 or 19. She was standing on a pier at sunset, smiling at the camera. Her smile was real, pure. But standing next to her, arm loosely around her waist, was the same man from my wedding photos. My blood ran cold. Ray leaned in. "That's him." I held the picture tighter, my chest tightening. In this photo, the man looked different, not cold, not stiff, he looked alive. His eyes softer, his expression almost protective but still unsettling, as if darkness knows how to smile if it needs to. "He's been in her life for years," I whispered. Ray pointed to the corner of the picture. "Look, there's a date printed. August 2015. That was almost 10 years before I met her. "Why didn't she tell me?" I muttered. "Why hide this?" Ray pulled out his phone. "I'm going to reverse image search him," but I grabbed his hand. "No, not yet, let's finish." We opened the last box, notebooks. Inside were journals, dozens of them. Neat, leather-bound, all labeled by year. Emily wrote almost every day. I knew she liked journaling, but I never imagined she kept so many records of her life. I picked one at random from a few years before we met. My heart pounded as I flipped through the pages, careful not to tear anything. At first, the entries were simple, talking about school, work, random thoughts, but then one entry stood out. The handwriting was shaky, the ink smudged in places like she was crying while writing. I began to read aloud. I saw him again today. I thought I was done with him. I thought leaving my old life behind would be enough, but he doesn't stop. He never stops. He always finds me. Ray and I exchanged a horrified look. I kept reading. He said he wants me back, that he will never let me live a normal life. He said if I ever try to be with someone else, he will ruin everything. He said I belong to him. My stomach twisted. He followed me after work today. He stood outside my apartment for an hour. I didn't tell anyone. No one would understand. Ray whispered, Michael, she was being stalked. I turned the page. He wants me to meet him tomorrow night. I don't know what he wants. I don't know what he plans to do, but if I don't show up, he said he'll make sure everyone I love pays for it. I felt cold, dizzy, sick. Emily never mentioned any of this. She never said she was scared of someone. She never told me she had been trapped in something catastrophic. I flipped another page. The next entry was short. I think I'm losing myself. I can't escape him. Ray put a hand on my shoulder. Michael, this isn't some affair. This is a nightmare she's been living in. But she still went with him, I whispered. Last night she still walked out of that house. Under threat, Ray said firmly. This man has been controlling her life for years. I closed the journal and let out a shaky breath. Then why hide it from me? Why not trust me enough to tell me? Before Ray could answer, my phone buzzed again. Another message, same unknown number, you're getting too close. Ray stepped forward, don't respond. But I already was. I typed, who are you? What do you want from my wife? The reply came instantly, she isn't your wife. My hands began to shake, then another message appeared. She was mine first. I felt something inside me snap. Ray, I whispered, he's obsessed with her. Ray nodded slowly, obsessed and dangerous. I typed again, unable to stop myself. Where is she? Where did you take her? The dots appeared, typing slowly. You'll see her when I'm ready. Ray cursed under his breath. Another message came. Until then, stop digging. My heart was racing. I'm calling the police. Ray grabbed my arm. And tell them what? That a man you've never met stalked you at your wedding, that your wife disappeared willingly with a stranger, that you found old pictures and journals. Michael, without proof, they'll say she left voluntarily. He was right. And that made everything worse. So what do? I whispered. Ray took a deep breath. We get ahead of him, we find out who he is before he realizes how much we know. How? I asked. Ray lifted Emily's journal. She wrote about him. There has to be a name somewhere. We dug through the pages, flipping carefully, scanning every line. Entry after entry, she referred to him only as he or him, never a name. Then finally Ray froze. Michael, look. He pointed to a single line near the back of the journal. I saw Daniel again tonight. Daniel, the man who followed her, the man who threatened her, the man who showed up at our wedding. Daniel. I repeated the name in my head like it was poison. Then my phone buzzed again, one last message. I told you to stop digging, Michael. Then another, you don't want to make me your enemy. I lifted my head slowly. At the exact moment someone knocked on my apartment door. 3 slow knocks, heavy, deliberate. Ray and I both froze. Neither of us moved. Then the knocking came again, harder, louder. Ray whispered, do not open it. But I stepped forward anyway, my heart pounding, because suddenly deep in my chest I had a terrifying feeling. That Daniel was no longer watching from the shadows. He was standing on the other side of my door. I didn't speak for almost a full minute after Mark walked out of the room. I sat on the edge of the bed, feeling the mattress sink slightly beneath me, staring at the floor as if the answers to my life were hidden somewhere in the pattern of the carpet fibers. My heart wasn't beating fast the way it does when you're panicked. It was beating slowly, heavy, like it carried the weight of a truth I wasn't ready to face. And all I kept thinking was, why wasn't I surprised? Because deep down maybe I already knew, and that was the part that hurt the most. I stood up, took a deep breath, and walked toward the window. Outside, the world looked calm, ordinary, a couple walking a dog, a delivery truck passing by, a kid riding a bike. No one out there knew that my perfectly polished life was cracking open from the inside. And I wondered for a moment how many people around me were living with secrets, hidden cracks beneath their smiles. Maybe more than I ever realized. I reached for my phone again. The photographs were still open, my wedding day. The happiest day of my life, or at least the day I told myself I was happy. The sun was shining, the music was soft, and everyone was smiling, except me. I was smiling for the camera, but in these candid shots, the ones I never knew existed, I looked confused, distant, maybe even scared. And behind me in almost every frame was her, my maid of honor, my best friend, Jessica. If someone had told me years ago that Jessica would eventually be the shadow following me in wedding photos, studying me, watching my every expression like a hunter waiting for the right moment, I would have laughed. Because Jessica wasn't just a friend, she was the friend. The kind of friend who knew every heartbreak I'd ever had, every dream I ever nurtured, everything I feared and tried to hide. She was my constant, my person. So why did she look like that in the pictures? Why did she stare at me with that strange, guarded expression, as if she knew something I did? I zoomed into one of the photos again, the same one Mark had looked at. The one where he stood close to her, almost too close. And I began to see something that I didn't see before. It wasn't just their proximity. It was the way Mark looked at her. Subtle, barely noticeable, but unmistakable to a woman who had spent years studying a man she loved deeply. He looked comfortable. Comfortable in the way you look at someone familiar. Someone who knew you in ways others didn't, someone you trusted, and suddenly a memory slipped into my mind when I hadn't thought about in years. A memory so small, so insignificant at the time that I had brushed it off and forgotten it. Years ago, before Mark and I were engaged, Jessica had said something that didn't make sense to me then. We were drinking wine at her apartment, talking about men, dating, the usual. She laughed at something I said, took another sip, and then whispered, "You know, you and Mark are a weird match. You're almost too perfect for each other. It's like watching a movie couple, but movies are never real." I remember laughing it off. I thought she was joking. Or maybe drunk, but now as I stood there staring at photos that showed her staring at me, I wondered if that moment was something else entirely. Maybe jealousy, maybe obsession, maybe something darker. I felt a chill crawl across my skin. Suddenly my phone buzzed, a message. I flinched, thinking it might be Mark, but it was the photographer. "Are you safe? Did he confess anything?" I stared at the message, heart thudding again. Safe? Why would he ask if I was safe? I typed back slowly. "What do you mean by safe?" His reply came instantly, almost too fast, like he had been staring at his phone waiting for my response. "Please don't panic, just tell me, did the man in the images explain everything?" Images, not photos, images, like he knew they were more than just mistakes in composition. Like he believed they were some kind of evidence. My fingers shook slightly as I typed again. He said it was an editing correction mistake, that he was just comparing distances and colors. There was a pause, and then, "That's impossible. Those images weren't from my camera. Or my assistant's, they shouldn't exist." I froze. For a full 10 seconds I didn't breathe. "What do you mean they weren't from your camera?" I typed, my throat tightening. The photographer responded again. "Somebody gave me those photos in a sealed envelope. They said it was urgent. They asked me to tell you. They told me these photos were the truth." My skin went cold. "Who gave them to you?" Another pause, and then, "It was a woman." "A woman?" My stomach twisted. Did I even need to ask? I typed anyway. "Did she give you her name?" His response was slower this time, as if he wasn't sure he should tell me. "She said her name was Jessica." Everything around me went silent. Jessica, my best friend, my maid of honor. The woman who had chosen my wedding dress with me. The woman who cried during my vows. The woman who held my hand minutes before I walked down the aisle, telling me she loved me and would always be there for me. And she slipped these disturbing images to the photographer without telling me. A sense of betrayal hit me so hard it felt physical. I reached for the edge of the dresser just to steady myself. The room felt like it was spinning, not fast, but slowly, like the world was tilting beneath me. My breathing quickened, and I forced myself to sit down before my legs gave out. What was happening? Why would Jessica send these? What was she trying to tell me? Or worse, what was she trying to do to me? I told the photographer I'd message later. I needed time to think, time to breathe, time to figure out how everything I trusted was falling apart piece by piece. After a few minutes, I wiped my face, stood up again, and walked into the kitchen. I poured myself a glass of water, but my hand was shaking so much I had to hold it with both hands. And as I stood there staring at the water, something inside me shifted. Fear began turning into anger, slow, controlled, hot. I wasn't the kind of person who liked confrontation. I avoided fights. I avoided drama. I didn't like hurting people. And I especially didn't like thinking badly of the people I loved. But one thing I was loyal, too loyal, and loyalty when betrayed becomes a different kind of fire. I grabbed my phone again. I opened Jessica's name. For a moment my thumb hovered over the call button. But something inside me whispered, "Don't call her yet. Don't show your hand. Not until you know the full truth." And that's when I remembered something else. The morning after my wedding, when Jessica hugged me goodbye, she whispered something in my ear, something strange. Something I had brushed off because I thought she was just emotional. She said, "Don't believe everything you think you see." At the time I thought it was just poetic nonsense, but now it felt like a warning or a threat. I sat down at the kitchen table, set my phone in front of me, and took a deep breath. If Jessica wanted to play games, I was done playing blindly, because now I needed answers, real answers. And if she wasn't going to give them willingly, I would find them myself. Just then the front door opened. Mark walked in, but this time his face was different, pale, tense, almost determined. He stopped when he saw me sitting at the table. "I need to talk," he said quietly. His voice didn't shake, and that scared me even more. I folded my arms slowly. "Then talk," he swallowed, "about Jessica." My heart skipped a beat. He stepped forward, slower than usual, like he was approaching something dangerous. Or like he felt danger. "What about her?" I asked, keeping my voice calm even though my chest felt tight. He took another breath. "I think she's been lying to you for years." I stared at him. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something shift between us. An invisible line, one that said the truth we were about to uncover wasn't going to break us apart, it was going to change everything. Mark didn't sit down right away. He hovered near the chair across from me, one hand on the back of it, like he didn't know whether he deserved to take a seat at my table anymore. And for a moment I let him stay there, uncomfortable, unsure, because that was exactly how I felt inside. My chest was tight, my mind was burning with questions, my pulse was heavy, but my voice stayed calm. "What lies?" I asked. He lowered himself into the chair slowly, like he wasn't sure if the ground beneath him was stable. He rubbed his palms together, then looked right at me, eyes exhausted. "I should have told you a long time ago," he said, "but I thought it didn't matter anymore. I thought she was gone from our lives." "Gone?" I whispered. "Jessica has never been gone." He flinched because he knew it was true. Jessica wasn't the kind of person who faded quietly into the background of anyone's life. She had a presence, loud, bright, overwhelming at times. She had a way of making herself part of every plan, every trip, every celebration. And for years I thought it was because she loved me. I thought she was just an overprotective friend. I thought she was just lonely. But now those thoughts felt like illusions I had forced myself to believe. "Just say it," I murmured. "Whatever it is, tell me." Mark let out a breath. "Jessica and I, we knew each other before you and I started dating." My heart jolted, not a full shock, more like a confirmation of something I hadn't wanted to admit out loud. That photo wasn't wrong about the comfort between them. It wasn't just my imagination. "How?" I asked, voice low. "We met at a friend's house once," he said. "A small gathering, before you and I matched on the app, before we even knew of each other." "Did you date her?" I asked. "No." His voice was quick, sharp. "No, never, it wasn't like that. But something happened," I said quietly. "Didn't it?" He hesitated, and that hesitation was enough to make the back of my throat burn. He finally nodded slowly. "She tried to kiss me." The room went silent, a cold stillness wrapped around me, squeezing my lungs. "She kissed you," I repeated, making sure he heard how the words sounded when spoken out loud. He shook his head. "No, she tried to." I pulled away. "I told her it wasn't going to happen." "When was this?" "Months before I met you," he said. "It was one time, and I honestly forgot about it until your wedding photos came in, and then everything came back." He looked down, elbows on the table, fingers threading through his hair. "I didn't think you ever needed to know," he said. "It didn't matter to us back then. She was just a random girl I met once. I didn't know she was your best friend. I didn't make the connection until I saw you two together the first time." I leaned back in my chair, breathing slowly, forcing myself to process each piece before the emotions overwhelmed me. My heart wasn't just hurting, it was rearranging itself around a new truth. "Why didn't you tell me then?" I whispered. "Because I didn't want to ruin your friendship," he said, "and honestly because she begged me not to." My eyes snapped up. "What?" "She came to me after she realized I was the same Mark you were dating," he said. "She said it was nothing. She said she didn't want you to think things were weird. She made me promise never to mention it." A cold, sharp breath slipped from my lips. "Jessica, my best friend, my confidant, the woman who held my secrets in her own, she didn't just hide this. She forced him to hide it too." Everything inside me started tightening again. My breaths felt uneven. A sense of betrayal was rising like a slow-moving wave ready to drown me. "Mark," I said, trying to simmer my voice into something steady, "why do you think she's doing this?" "Why now?" He swallowed, hesitating again. "There's something else," he said, "something I haven't told you." And just like that, another dark cloud settled above the table. I closed my eyes for a moment, bracing myself because I wasn't sure how much more truth I could take without breaking. "Just tell me," I whispered. "She called me," he said, my eyes opened sharply. "When?" "Right before the wedding," he said, "the night before." The room swayed slightly like the air had shifted. I tightened my fingers around the edge of the table to keep myself grounded. "What did she say?" He looked up at me, guilt painted across his expression. "She told me not to marry you." My breath caught. "She said you weren't ready, that you were making a mistake, that you were too emotional, that you weren't thinking clearly." "She said that?" My voice trembled with disbelief. He nodded. "She said she was the one who really knew you. That she had always taken care of you, that you needed her more than you needed me." My heart cracked, not loudly, not violently, silently, because nothing hurts more than realizing someone you trusted more than anyone has been quietly trying to rewrite your life behind your back. "What did you tell her?" I whispered. "I told her she was wrong," he said immediately. "I told her I loved you, that you were the only person I wanted, and I told her to stay out of our relationship." "And then what?" she cried. "I heard her crying on the phone. She kept saying she was losing everything, that you and I were ruining what she had with you." I felt a deep sting in my chest. All those moments Jessica made our wedding about her suddenly made sense, the dramatic speeches, the emotional breakdowns, the passive-aggressive comments about marriage being a trap, the way she clung to me during the reception like she was the one who was losing a spouse. She wasn't losing me, she thought she owned me. Mark continued, his voice soft and strained. "I didn't want to ruin your wedding day, so I didn't say anything, but after seeing those photos, after what the photographer told you, I think she's spiraling." I pressed a hand against my forehead, feeling the weight of everything pressing down. And there's one more thing, Mark said. I looked up slowly. He exhaled hard, bracing himself. She left something in my tux pocket. My body stiffened. What did she leave? He reached into his back pocket and placed something on the table, a note. A small, folded note with my name written on the front in her handwriting. My hands shook slightly as I reached for it. I unfolded it slowly. Inside there were only 6 words that hit me harder than anything else that day. He's lying, look deeper, trust me. I stared at the note, my heartbeat pulsing through my fingertips. Jessica wrote it. Jessica placed it in Mark's tux. Jessica wanted me to doubt him. Jessica wanted to rip open the foundation of my marriage from inside the wedding itself. Mark watched me waiting. I dropped the note onto the table and looked him straight in the eyes. Why did you keep this? I asked quietly. Because I didn't want to ruin our honeymoon, he said. I planned to give it to you eventually, I just didn't know when. But now we have to talk about it. I sat back, inhaling deeply, trying to gather the pieces of myself. So Jessica has been trying to break us up for years, I whispered, the truth settling like cold ash in my bones. Before we dated, during our relationship. During our engagement, during the wedding, he nodded. And now she's using the photographer, I said, sending him photos, manipulating everything, watching us from the sidelines. Mark didn't say anything. He didn't need to, because we both knew this wasn't just jealousy, this wasn't just manipulation. This was obsession, the kind that doesn't end quietly, the kind that doesn't walk away when you say no, the kind that doesn't stop until something breaks. And for the first time since this whole nightmare started, I felt something new rising inside me, not fear, not confusion, not heartbreak. But clarity, cold, sharp clarity. If Jessica wanted to destroy my life, she was about to learn that I wasn't the girl she thought she could control anymore. Because now I was ready to look deeper. Now I was ready to see everything she had tried to hide. Now I was ready for the truth, and the truth was about to change everything. That night sleep didn't come. I lay awake beside Mark, staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet hum of the air conditioner, feeling the weight of a truth that wouldn't let me rest. Mark fell asleep eventually, his breaths even, shoulders rising and falling. But even while he slept, he looked tense, as if his dreams weren't peaceful either. I quietly slipped out of bed and walked into the living room. The house was dark except for the faint glow of the streetlights filtering through the blinds. I sat on the couch, holding Jessica's note in my hands. Those 6 words stared back at me like a riddle I didn't want to solve. He's lying, look deeper, trust me. What did she want me to believe? What did she want me to doubt? What exactly did she think she knew? Jessica had always been dramatic, but this was something else. It wasn't the sorrow of a best friend afraid of losing me. It wasn't jealousy alone, it was control. A twisted need to shape my life according to her own insecurities. I tried to remember the earliest signs, times she made subtle comments that didn't seem harmful but planted seeds of doubt. Times she questioned Mark's intentions or the stories I told about him or our dates. Times she complained that I was changing because of him. I used to think she was just protective. Now I wasn't so sure. My hands were trembling, so I set the note down. My phone buzzed suddenly in the quiet room. I jumped, a message from an unknown number. You shouldn't be alone with him. My heartbeat quickened. Him, they meant Mark. I stared at the number. It wasn't saved in my contacts, but something about the tone felt familiar, firm, direct, emotional in a way that felt personal. I typed back slowly. Who is this? No answer. I waited 30 seconds, then a full minute. Nothing. Then I tried calling the number. It rang once, then went straight to voicemail, the automated robotic voice repeating the generic message. No personal greeting, but I knew who it was. I didn't need confirmation. It was Jessica. She was starting to lose control, and people who lose control don't think clearly. They act on impulse. They push harder. They lash out. I needed to be careful. I walked to the kitchen to get some water, but halfway there I stopped near the window. Something outside the house caught my eye. I leaned closer to the blinds and peered through them, my breath slowing. A car, a small dark sedan, parked across the street with its lights off. No one inside was visible, no movement, just a silent shadow sitting there in the night. Could have been a random car, could have been a neighbor's guest, but something deep in my gut felt wrong because I remembered that car. Jessica had driven a rental on the week of the wedding. She complained her own car had issues and was in the shop. She de-rented something small, something dark. Something just like the car across the street. A chill crept up my spine. Was she watching me, listening, waiting? I stepped away from the window. Suddenly the house didn't feel like home. It felt like a stage. A place where someone else was silently observing my every move. I went back to the couch, pulled my knees up to my chest, and held my phone tightly. The moments stretched long and heavy, too quiet. I was done being passive, so I opened my message history, found Jessica's name, and typed, "We need to talk tomorrow." I didn't expect her to reply, but she did, almost instantly. "Of course, I'll come to you morning." Nothing about her response felt normal, too pleasant, too eager, too calm. I typed back, "No, I'll come to you." This time she took longer to respond. Why? I stared at the word, just one word, but it carried tension, suspicion, fear. I wrote back, "Because I want answers, and I want them in your space, not mine." Another long pause, then finally, "Okay, 10 a.m. And then she added something that made my stomach twist. I've been waiting for this. I set the phone down, my pulse thudding. I didn't know if I'd get the answers I wanted or answers I wasn't ready for, but I needed to look her in the eyes and see what was real. The rest of the night passed slowly. I didn't sleep, my mind kept replaying different versions of tomorrow's conversation, different truths, different lies. When the sky finally began to lighten, I changed, washed my face, and made coffee. Mark woke up around 8 a.m., coming into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes, looking drained. "You didn't sleep?" He asked softly. "No," I said. He hesitated. "What are you planning?" "I'm going to see Jessica," I said. "This morning." His expression tightened. "Do you want me to come with you?" "No," I said. "I need to do this alone." He opened his mouth to argue, but then he closed it again. Maybe he knew the truth, whatever it was couldn't be filtered through him. I needed to hear it directly. He stepped closer. "Be careful." I nodded. At 9:15 I grabbed my bag, keys, and phone. Mark followed me to the door, his hand resting on the frame like he wanted to hold me back but knew he shouldn't. "Call me if anything feels off," he said. "Everything already feels off," I replied softly. He didn't argue, he just watched me leave. The drive to Jessica's apartment felt longer than usual. Every red light, every turn, every passing car felt like it carried some hidden message. My hands were cold against the steering wheel and my thoughts were a storm. When I finally pulled into her building's parking lot, I felt a ripple of unease. Her window blinds were closed. Not unusual, but something about the stillness of the apartment felt eerie, like the air around it was suspended in a moment that hadn't moved on. I walked to her door and knocked once. Nothing. I knocked again, still nothing. Then I heard footsteps inside, slow, deliberate, like she was debating whether to open the door at all. The lock clicked, the door opened. Jessica stood there, her hair slightly messy, eyes tired but sharp. A half smile on her lips that didn't reach her eyes. "You look exhausted," she said softly. "So do you," I replied. She stepped aside. "Come in." I walked into the apartment and instantly I felt it. The atmosphere was different. It wasn't the warm, cozy place I used to visit. The living room felt darker, cluttered, papers on the table, photos scattered, a corkboard on the wall with pinned pictures, notes, strings connecting different things. My stomach dropped. It looked like investigation material, or worse, obsession. Jessica closed the door quietly behind me. "I didn't think you'd actually come," she said. "I told you I needed answers." She smiled, a small, strange smile. "And I told you I've been waiting." She walked past me and motioned toward the living room. I followed her slowly. "What is all this?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She glanced at the board. "Truth," she said. "Everything you never saw." "What are you talking about?" I asked. She stepped closer to the board and gently touched one of the pinned photos, a photo of me. Not from the wedding, older, me at my job, me at the grocery store, me at the park, me on my birthday 3 years ago, all taken from afar. My breath caught. "These, Jessica, what are these?" She didn't look ashamed. She didn't look guilty. She looked relieved. "Proof," she whispered, "that he was wrong for you from the beginning, that I was the only one who really saw you, really protected you." My heart began pounding. "Jessica, how long have you been taking these?" She shrugged. "It wasn't about taking pictures. It was about keeping you safe, watching over you, making sure no one hurt you." "No one hurt me," I repeated. "Jessica, do you hear yourself?" She turned toward me slowly, her expression shifting into something I had never seen on her before, something fragile and dangerous. "I loved you," she whispered, "more than anyone else ever could." My blood ran cold. This wasn't jealousy, this wasn't insecurity, this was fixation, a warped attachment, a terrifying truth. "Jessica," I said gently, "you're not making sense. You've been crossing boundaries for years. This isn't normal. This isn't healthy." Her face tightened. "You think he loves you more than I do," she whispered. My pulse accelerated. "This isn't about love," I said. "This is about control." She shook her head slowly. "No, it's about loyalty, about who truly deserves your trust." She stepped closer, her eyes wide and shining with emotion that didn't feel stable. "I saved you," she whispered. "All these years, I kept you safe from people who would break you. And now you're choosing him, after everything I've done, after everything I've protected you from." A cold realization suddenly hit me. She wasn't trying to protect me, she was trying to own me, and she believed, deeply truly, that she had the right to. "Jessica," I said, voice trembling, "please stop, think about what you're saying." But she wasn't listening anymore. She walked to her table, picked up a photo, and handed it to me. It was the same wedding photo the photographer had shown me, but this time I noticed something else. A small mark in the corner, her handwriting, a date, a time, and one sentence. "This is when I almost lost you." I looked up at her. Her expression was breaking apart, anger, sadness, desperation, all swirling in her eyes. "You were never supposed to pick him," she whispered. "You were supposed to pick me." My heart dropped. This conversation wasn't about truth anymore. It was about unraveling. And I suddenly realized Jessica wasn't just obsessed with my life, she was obsessed with being the center of it, and she wasn't ready to let go, not without a fight. I could feel my heart shaking inside my chest as I left the attorney's office that afternoon. The sky above Los Angeles was unusually gray, almost like it understood the storm that was running through my life. I walked toward my car, trying to breathe, trying to steady myself. But my mind kept playing one scene over and over again, the moment Laura had walked away from our wedding photo shoot to whisper something to Liam. The moment his eyes had shifted quickly, nervously, and the photographer had captured that expression without any of us knowing. I didn't realize it then. But that single captured moment was about to destroy everything I thought I knew about my marriage. As I sat inside my car, I opened my phone again to look at the message Laura had sent the night she disappeared. I can't do this anymore. I hope one day you'll understand. I still didn't know what she meant. What couldn't she do anymore? Why had she run? And most importantly, why had she taken all that money with her? I leaned back in the seat and stared at the steering wheel. Nothing made sense. But the attorney's voice kept echoing in my head. Someone forged your signature, Ethan, and it wasn't your wife. So if Laura didn't do it, then who the hell did? I started driving without even knowing where I wanted to go. I just needed to move, needed my thoughts to catch up with the truth. The highway stretched out in front of me. Lights blurred past like long streaks of gold, and my mind kept returning to the hardest question of all. How well did I really know my own brother? I drove to the beach, one of the quiet ones near Santa Monica where hardly anyone went at this time of day. I kicked off my shoes and walked straight toward the water. The ocean breeze hit my face, cold, sharp, honest. The kind of honesty I was desperate for because everyone around me had been lying. I stood there listening to the waves, and for the first time in weeks I let myself cry. Not because I was broken, not because I was weak, but because I finally understood that nothing in my life had collapsed overnight. It had been collapsing for months, piece by piece, lie by lie, smile by smile, and I had been blind to all of it. I wiped my face roughly and inhaled. No more confusion, no more silence. No more letting people walk all over my trust. If the truth wasn't coming to me, I was going to hunt it down myself. That night I drove home, grabbed a notebook, and started writing names, anyone connected to my bank account, my business, my personal life. Laura, Liam. My old financial advisor, even my wedding planner, and then I wrote something at the bottom of the page, something that made my heart twist. Someone close is lying. I stared at those words for a long time. The handwriting looked shaky, almost terrified, but also determined. I wasn't going to let anyone else destroy my life. As I lay down in bed, I kept the notebook beside me. It felt like a shield, a promise, a line I had drawn in the sand. The next morning, I woke up early with a clear destination in mind. The photographer, if he claimed he saw something disturbing in the wedding photos, I needed to see it myself. I drove across town to his studio, a nice little place with glass windows and modern decor. When I walked in, he immediately recognized me. His name was Daniel, young guy, artistic. Observant, the kind of person who noticed details most people missed. Ethan, he said softly, I'm glad you came. I nodded. Just show me everything, Daniel, please. He didn't waste time. He led me toward his editing desk, opened a folder on his screen, and clicked through dozens of photos of smiles, of laughter, of moments that now felt painfully fake. And then he paused. This one, he said. I leaned closer. It was a candid shot taken during the reception. Laura was standing near the cake table. Liam was beside her, but it wasn't their posture that made my stomach drop. It wasn't their distance or their angle, it was their eyes. They weren't looking at the cake. They weren't looking at anyone else. They were looking at each other. With familiarity, with trust, with something I didn't want to name, Daniel zoomed in, and that's when my hands went cold. Their hands were touching, not holding, not grabbing, just the slightest brush, fingers meeting for a moment, but it wasn't innocent. You could feel the intention behind it. You could feel the electricity in that tiny captured second. My throat tightened. How long have you had this? I asked quietly. I noticed it right after the ceremony, Daniel admitted, but I didn't think much of it until your wife disappeared. Then I started going through everything again. And the patterns, Ethan, there are too many moments where they look at each other like they share a secret. I felt myself going numb. I'm sorry, he whispered. I stood there staring at the screen, my mind flooding with memories. Liam offering to help with wedding prep. Liam texting Laura about details. Liam showing up early to events. Liam always finding reasons to talk to her when I wasn't around. Was it all coincidence, or had something been happening right under my nose? A sharp pain hit my chest, not the kind that breaks you instantly, but the kind that shatters you slowly. I thanked Daniel and left the studio, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold my keys. I sat in the car for a long time, staring at nothing. That photo, that tiny moment, had changed everything. For the next few days, I became someone else, colder, sharper, focused. I wasn't going to accuse anyone without proof. I wasn't going to explode or scream. I was going to be smart. The world had taken enough from me. Now it was my turn. I started digging through old messages, old emails, phone logs, every detail of the wedding planning, and little by little the truth became impossible to ignore. There were inconsistencies everywhere, schedules that didn't make sense, messages between Laura and Liam that were about wedding arrangements, but somehow sounded too personal. A few deleted threads I recovered from the cloud. The more I uncovered, the more a realization hit me. My brother had been slipping into the spaces of my life long before the wedding, helping with things without being asked, showing up at places I mentioned only once, asking too many questions about my relationship, and worst of all, Laura had let him. But why? What did they want? What were they hiding from me? I decided to do one thing I should have done months ago: talk to my mother. I drove to her house, small, warm, and familiar. She opened the door with that same gentle smile she always had, but as soon as she saw my face, her smile faded. "What's wrong, sweet boy?" I hadn't been called that in years. It almost made me break again. "I need answers, Mom," I said quietly. "About Liam." Something flickered in her eyes, something I had never seen before: fear. She motioned for me to come inside. We sat down at the kitchen table and she folded her hands tightly. "Ethan, there are things about your brother I should have told you long ago." My heart started pounding. She took a shaky breath. "Liam has always been jealous of you, even when you were kids. You got into a better school, you had more friends. You built a successful business, you found love." She looked down. "Every time you achieved something, he felt smaller." I stared at her, stunned. "He never showed that. He wouldn't. He hides things well." I felt the air tighten around me. Was this the answer? Was jealousy the root of everything? My mother reached across the table and held my hand. "I'm not defending him, but you need to be careful, Ethan. There's a darkness in him, a bitterness I never knew how to fix." Her words settled deep inside me, heavy, cold darkness. Bitterness, jealousy, the pieces were fitting together in ways I didn't want them to. If Liam truly resented me, then stealing from me wouldn't be enough. Breaking my marriage wouldn't be enough. He would want to destroy me completely. But why now? Why during my wedding? Unless he wanted something I had or someone. A chill ran down my spine. Was Laura part of this, willingly, or had she been manipulated? I left my mother's house with more questions than answers, but also with something I didn't have before: a direction. I was going to confront Liam. Not with anger, not with accusations, but with confidence, with calm, with power, because I finally realized something: the truth wasn't going to break me, it was going to build my revenge. That evening I drove to Liam's apartment. The sun was setting behind the buildings, casting long shadows across the street, shadows that felt too familiar now. I knocked on his door. He opened it within seconds, surprised to see me. "Ethan, hey, what's up?" His voice sounded casual, too casual, as if nothing had happened. As if he didn't know my world had fallen apart. I stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. "We need to talk," I said. He closed the door slowly behind me. "About what?" I turned to face him fully, letting the silence stretch. "About Laura, about my money. About the truth." His smile faded instantly, and in that moment I saw it: the shift in his eyes, the tension in his jaw, the guilt, or was it fear? Whatever it was, he couldn't hide it anymore. I had him cornered, and he knew it. This was the moment everything began to unravel. The moment I stopped being the victim and started becoming something else. Someone stronger, someone smarter, someone who would no longer allow betrayal to run freely through his life, because I was done losing, and now it was Liam's turn. The moment Liam's expression changed, something inside me shifted too. For weeks, I had been walking through my life like a shadow, hurt, confused, betrayed, searching for solid ground that kept slipping from beneath my feet. But standing in his apartment that evening, watching the way his jaw tightened and his eyes flickered, I felt something I hadn't felt in a very long time: strength, real strength. The kind that comes when the lies finally stop working, when the mask finally cracks. And you finally see a person for who they really are. I walked deeper into the room, slow, calm, steady. Liam stayed near the door like he wasn't sure whether to talk or run. "Why are you looking at me like that?" he asked quietly. "You know why," I replied. He swallowed. His throat moved like he was forcing something down: fear, guilt, regret. I couldn't tell yet. "What did you do, Liam?" My voice wasn't angry, it wasn't loud, it was controlled. Sharp enough to cut through the lies he was preparing to hide behind. He forced a laugh. "Come on, Ethan, you're starting to sound paranoid. What exactly are you accusing me of?" I didn't step back. I kept my eyes locked on him. "I didn't accuse you of anything, not yet. I only asked why you look scared." His face froze. He couldn't maintain the act anymore. I could almost feel the truth rising in the room like heat, uncomfortable, unavoidable, burning. "Where's Laura?" I asked. His eyes narrowed. "Why would I know that?" "Because she trusted you." I took a step closer, "and she shouldn't have." He inhaled sharply, but he still tried to hold his expression neutral. "What are you talking about?" I took my phone out of my pocket and tapped on the screen, pulling up the zoomed-in photo Daniel had shown me. The moment their fingers had touched, I held it up to Liam's face. "This," I said quietly, "this is what I'm talking about." The picture didn't lie. And neither did his reaction. His eyes widened for only a second, but that was all I needed. The guilt was right there, bright, raw, impossible to hide. I lowered the phone slowly. "I'm going to ask again," I whispered. "Where is she?" Liam walked past me, pacing the room, rubbing his palms against his jeans like he was trying to wipe panic off his skin. "Look, Ethan, you're overthinking this. You really are. It was just one moment, one stupid, meaningless." "Don't," I cut in. "Don't you dare insult me with that." He closed his eyes tightly. "Just tell me the truth." For a long moment he said nothing. The silence stretched out, heavy and suffocating, until finally he let out a slow, shaky breath. "It wasn't supposed to go this far." The words hit me like a punch. I felt the air leave my lungs. Go this far, I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. Liam, what did you do? He dragged a hand through his hair, pacing faster now. I didn't plan any of this, okay? It just happened. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. How does a betrayal just happen? He stopped pacing. He looked right at me, eyes filled with something I had never seen in him before, shame. I didn't mean to fall for her. My world went silent. Everything, every sound, every emotion just stopped for a second. You what? The words tasted wrong coming out of my mouth. Liam swallowed again. I didn't mean to fall for her, Ethan. Laura, she was lonely. She felt ignored. She felt like your wedding was becoming a project, not a celebration. She said you were always working, always distracted. She said she missed feeling like she mattered. My stomach twisted. She talked to you about that? He nodded. At first, I was just being supportive. I mean, you're my brother. I wanted you two to be okay. I wanted you to work things out. But then his voice cracked. Then I started caring about her too much. My whole chest felt tight, so tight I could barely breathe. And she cared about you too. I asked, forcing the words out. He hesitated. That hesitation was an answer. It felt like my heart split right down the middle. She didn't want to, he said. She really didn't. She kept saying it was wrong. She kept saying she loved you. But the more frustrated she got, the closer we got, and before I realized it, he sat down, burying his face in his hands. I crossed a line I never should have crossed. The room blurred around me. Everything inside me felt like it was shaking, rage, heartbreak, disbelief, all swirling together into something I didn't even have a name for. And the money, I whispered. Did you take it? Liam didn't look up. He didn't have to. The silence was its own confession. You forged my signature, I said, voice trembling but controlled. You rerouted my business funds. You lied to me. You lied to Mom. You lied to everyone. He finally lifted his head. I was desperate, he whispered. I had debts, real ones, dangerous ones. I thought I could borrow the money, fix everything, put it back, and you'd never know. I stared at him stunned. And Laura, I asked, my voice hollow, did she know you were stealing from me? He shook his head immediately. No. She had no idea. She only found out the night before the wedding. She freaked out. She told me to tell you the truth. She said she would go to the police if I didn't. So you convinced her to run? No, he shouted. I did. She ran because she felt guilty. She said she ruined everything. She said she didn't deserve you. She didn't even tell me where she was going. His voice cracked again. And I swear to God, Ethan, I haven't heard from her since. I stared at him, searching for a lie, searching for any sign that he was still manipulating me. But for the first time, I saw him clearly. My brother wasn't a mastermind. He wasn't some criminal genius. He was a broken man who made desperate decisions. And then kept making them until there was no way back. I let out a slow, shaking breath. All this time I thought the betrayal was complicated, twisted, mysterious, but the truth was painfully simple. Two people I loved got lost. They crossed lines they shouldn't have. They hid it because they were ashamed, and then everything spiraled into something catastrophic. I walked toward the window, trying to steady myself. You destroyed everything, I whispered. My marriage, my trust, my peace, my life. Behind me, Liam didn't move. There was no excuse that could fix this. No apology that could erase it, but I wasn't here for apologies, not anymore. I turned back to him. You're going to fix what you can, I said quietly, and I'm going to make sure you do. He looked up slowly, eyes red. How? You're going to return the money, I said. Every penny, he nodded. You're going to sign a full confession for my attorney. His shoulders slumped. Oh, okay, and then I paused, letting the silence weigh down on him. You're going to help me find Laura. His head snapped up. You still want to find her? I looked him dead in the eyes. I don't want revenge on her. I want the truth from her, and she's going to give it to me. Liam exhaled shakily. And what about me? I walked past him toward the door. I opened the door and stepped out. You'll get what you deserve, one way or another. Before he could respond, I closed the door behind me, and as I walked down that hallway, something changed inside me. The pain didn't disappear, the heartbreak didn't fade, the betrayal didn't heal, but it transformed. It became clarity, it became focus, it became purpose. Now I finally understood the truth, all of it, and now my revenge could truly begin. When I stepped out of Liam's apartment, the cool night air felt different on my skin. Sharper, cleaner, almost like the world itself was acknowledging the truth I had just uncovered. My brother had betrayed me. My wife had disappeared under the weight of guilt. And every piece of my life had been twisted by secrets, jealousy, fear, and mistakes that none of us could take back. But now I finally had the full picture. And with the truth came something even more powerful: direction. I wasn't lost anymore. I wasn't confused. I wasn't drowning. For the first time since the photographer called me, I felt steady. I got into my car and sat there for a moment, staring at the steering wheel, letting everything settle inside me. The betrayal still burned, the heartbreak still ached, but those feelings weren't controlling me anymore. They were fueling me. My next step was clear: find Laura, not to beg, not to fight, not to win her back, but to look her in the eyes and hear the truth from her own mouth, to understand her part in the storm that had torn my life apart. And to end this chapter with clarity, not confusion. I drove to my apartment, packed a small bag, grabbed my laptop, and opened the tracking account I shared with my financial attorney. I wasn't tracking her phone, that was gone. But her credit card, the one she forgot to disconnect from our joint travel account, still pinged. And 30 minutes earlier, a small purchase had been made at a gas station 3 hours north. My heart thumped, so she wasn't out of the country. She wasn't with someone else. She wasn't hiding on the other side of the world. She was still close, still running, still scared, still trying to disappear but leaving a faint trail for me to follow. "Laura," I whispered under my breath. For the first time, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel hatred. I felt something much heavier, a deep, painful sadness for the woman I once loved, the woman who had gotten lost somewhere along the way. I started the engine and began driving north, past the city lights, past the quiet suburbs, into the long stretch of empty highway where the world felt wide and lonely. As the hours passed, memories kept hitting me in waves, her laugh, her smile, her excitement when we first toured our wedding venue, and then the frustration in her voice when she complained I was thinking like a businessman, not a fiancé. Maybe she was right. Maybe I had gotten lost too, in ambition, in work, in trying to build a life so perfect that I stopped noticing the cracks forming beneath it. None of that excused what she did, nothing excused her and Liam betraying my trust, but I couldn't pretend I was blameless. Pain didn't erase the truth. By the time I reached the small town where her credit card had pinged, the sun was rising, soft, gentle light spreading across the sky like the world was waking up slowly. I pulled into the gas station, walked inside, and showed the clerk a photo of Laura. "Have you seen her?" He nodded immediately. "Yeah, she bought water and a sandwich," looked upset, drove off heading toward the mountains. The mountains, the one place she always said felt peaceful. Because her grandmother had taken her there as a child, it made sense. She wasn't hiding. She was trying to breathe, trying to escape the guilt, trying to feel human again. I thanked the clerk and drove toward the winding mountain road. The higher I went, the more quiet the world became, trees, mist, and long, empty stretches of road. And then I saw it, her car, parked near a lookout point facing a wide valley covered in morning fog. My heart slammed against my ribs. I pulled over behind her, stepped out of the car, and took a breath that felt too heavy to hold. She was there, sitting alone on a stone bench, staring out at the valley, her hair tied back, wearing the same jacket she wore the night she left. She looked smaller than I remembered, tired, fragile, broken. For a moment I didn't move. I just watched her, letting the reality settle in. This was the woman who promised forever. This was the woman who ran. This was the woman who held secrets she never meant to keep. And regrets she couldn't escape. I took one slow step forward. She didn't hear me, another step, still nothing. And then finally, when I was only a few feet behind her, she turned her head slightly, as if she felt my presence, and her eyes widened. "Ethan." Her voice cracked on my name. I nodded gently. She stood up too fast, like her legs almost gave out beneath her. What are you doing here?" she whispered. "I needed to see you," I said softly. "We need to talk." She looked away, tears already forming. "I didn't want you to come. I didn't want you to see me like this. I needed the truth," I said. "Not your disappearance, not your silence. You owe me that much." Her shoulders collapsed and she covered her mouth, trying to stop the sob that escaped. "I'm so sorry, Ethan. I never wanted to hurt you. I swear I didn't." I stepped closer. "Then why did you?" She shook her head desperately. "I never meant for any of it to happen. I didn't love him. I didn't choose him." I was confused, overwhelmed, scared, and then everything went wrong. Her voice trembled like it was on the edge of breaking. "I loved you," she whispered. "I loved you so much it scared me. And when I felt you slipping away into work and stress and plans and responsibilities, I didn't know how to reach you anymore. I felt a sharp ache in my chest." "And Liam?" I asked quietly. She wiped her face. "I talked to him because you weren't listening. I leaned on him because I was lonely, but I never meant for the lines to blur. I told him to stop. I told him it wasn't right. I tried to pull away, but," she looked down, "I think he cared more than he admitted. He told me he fell for you." She nodded slowly. "I know, he told me too, and I hated myself for letting it get that far. I never wanted any of it." I let her words settle. "Painful, true, messy, human, and the money?" I asked. She shook her head quickly. "No, I never touched it. I didn't know he stole from you until the night before the wedding. I begged him to confess. I told him you would help him if he just told the truth, but he got scared and I panicked." "So you ran?" She closed her eyes. "I thought leaving was the only way to protect you from the fallout. I thought if I disappeared you wouldn't think I was part of it, but leaving made you look guilty." "I know." Tears streamed down her face. "And I hated myself for it every single day." I stood there, letting her cry, letting her release everything she had held inside for weeks, and as painful as it was, I understood something important. She wasn't a villain. She wasn't innocent either. She was flawed, lost, overwhelmed, human. And that didn't erase the heartbreak, but it gave it context. "I can't undo the damage," she whispered. "I can't undo the pain, but I wanted you to know the truth before you start your life again without me." I took a long breath. I didn't come here to hate you, I said. I came here to understand you. She looked up, eyes trembling with hope. Is there a chance? No, I said gently. Not for us, not anymore. Her face broke, but she nodded. But I forgive you, I added. I forgive you so I can move on, so I can breathe again, so I don't carry this pain for the rest of my life. Her lips parted as if she couldn't believe what she heard. And Liam, she asked softly. He'll face the consequences, I said. But forgiveness is a different journey, one I'm not ready for yet. She nodded again, wiping her cheeks. We stood there for a long moment, two people who once promised forever, now standing in the ruins of what could have been. I hope you find happiness, Ethan, she whispered. Real happiness? I hope you find peace, I replied, and I hope you never run from the truth again. She let out a small, broken laugh. I won't. We exchanged one last look, bittersweet, painful, final, and then she walked past me, heading toward her car. I didn't stop her, I didn't call her back, I didn't look back. Some chapters end softly, some end violently. Ours ended with truth, and as I stood there alone, overlooking the valley, I felt something shift inside me, like my heart was finally putting itself back together. Not perfectly, not completely, but enough. I walked back to my car, sat down, and whispered to myself, this isn't the end, this is the beginning. My story wasn't destroyed, it was rewritten, stronger, sharper, wiser. Betrayal didn't break me, it forged me. It shaped me into someone who knows his worth, who listens to his instincts, who protects his heart. And my revenge, it wasn't about hurting anyone. It was about rebuilding my life on truth, without liars, without thieves, without secrets. As I drove away from the mountains, the sun rose higher, spreading warm gold across the sky. A new day, a new beginning, and for the first time in a long time, I felt free.